round. I think it's important for all tutors across the board to be embedding transferable skills into their schemes of work and then therefore into the lessons themselves, because it's a practical course in a sense, but students are coming here in order to learn these practical skills to then take out into the professional world. So the idea that these kind of academic study skills or transferable skills are of interest to them is probably not the case. It's not to say that that won't be the case through their kind of university career, but the kind of predominant thing with most of our students is that they're quite practically minded and pragmatic in the sense that they're here to gain the skills in order to go out into the wider world and to be able to work and do things that they love, or whatever, for money or for passion or whatever it is. So persuading them that these kind of academic transferable skills are useful to them can only really go so far in terms of their academic modules, and really the academic tutors can only go so far in trying to persuade them that is the case. So that's where really embedding these skills into the more practical modules is at its most important, to show them that these have real-world connotations and are not some sort of either hoops to jump through or box to tick in order to get through to the other side. And I think the way that the courses are marketed, which is totally understandable, is to show the more glamorous side of the music industry in all its iterations, and not show the kind of level of thought and the level of consideration that any kind of endeavour involves. So in terms of actual skills, things like note-taking in class can really promote something as simple as a record of that being of that happening and that existing, instead of something slightly more abstract as the experience as a memory, but recording, reflecting upon, looking back at the time that they've spent learning and encouraging that deeper thought and reflection on what's actually occurring, rather than potentially the case of students passively receiving knowledge from lauded tutors. They're recording that and they're reflecting on it themselves and actually breaking that down into something that is more useful than just purely receiving that knowledge and then expecting for something magical to happen with it afterwards. Again, that links in quite well with the kind of the critical faculties and critical analysis and thinking that we try and promote in academic modules, which is that this constant questioning, not only of themselves, but of other people and what is being presented to them, and what is being presented to them as the norm, as the industry standard, as something that's right or wrong, and it's really not as simple as that. And currently our students, the majority of them, may not be accessing those critical, analytical skills as much as they should be, and really do look at things in terms of what is right and what is wrong, and being able to promote the fact, being able to promote an open discourse in every subject is of the utmost importance, especially in terms of them producing work that isn't generic and isn't going to be useful to anyone, and that really harks back to this idea of box ticking and hoop jumping, is that we want them to produce work that has some use to them, but also maybe can contribute to the field that they're working in, rather than going through the motions. Moving further on from that, the idea of academic conventions and academic tone can also equally translate into a more practical scheme of work, in the way that how students are presenting themselves and how they will go on to present themselves in their field. So making sure that the language that they use is appropriate for their audience, making sure that they're not presenting ideas from the plane of their own ideas formed in a slightly abstract cloud, where they do take and they do research, but they're not actively engaging with what they're doing and recording that, so their opinions come across as if they've just been plucked out of the air, as opposed to what they should be presenting is a well-researched and well-worded argument across the board. So I think and I believe really should be considered to be removed entirely from the vocabulary or vernacular of a student. It's not to say that they can't come from that personal opinion, especially in things like reflective work, but the idea that their own opinions is purely enough isn't going to be good enough, whatever field. And to show that you've actively engaged with other people working in that field and learnt from that, and I think that is that's the most important thing, is that they're showing that they're learning and showing they're working, in a sense, and through that being able to get to know themselves a bit better, being able to really construct their thought process in a way that's coherent to other people and persuasive to other people, and that's in writing, that's in presenting, that's also in performing as well. It's when they're talking about their performances, if they have to do a viva voce or they have to talk about any events that they've put on, that they're actually looking at it from a more research grounded perspective, rather than just purely focusing on themselves.